Good morning, everyone. So I was granted the gift of wishing everybody a happy morning as we begin the third period of this hockey game. And the third period doesn't mean that we quit. That's when we go ahead and try to dig deeper, drink a little water. If you're a Gatorade fan, drink your Gatorade so we can go ahead and finish strong. And I think it has been an extremely successful uh, summit so far, and it's going to be more successful. So we got the closer is getting ready. He's being warmed up. I'm not going to call out Rich, but Rich, he's ready. Segura, of course. Segura scored. I got you. I got you. So, but A-team, good morning. So, a couple of minutes before we start, but we definitely want to get things, start getting our mindsets ready. We're going to have some amazing presentations today because we're going to have people in uniform up here. We're going to have folks from the Air Force up here talking to us. We're also going to have some folks from DISA. I don't know if that's good because they were so beat up yesterday, but we have DISA coming in today as well virtually. So, but nonetheless, a couple of things that have not changed. To change the classification level, it was once again denied. Or I think it was tabled. We still got to continue to communicate at an unclassified level. So let's make sure that we look left and right and we keep it strong on class all day. If we need to have a higher classification, make connection with those individuals so you can try to close that out. After actions, the director yesterday helped us with the messaging campaign. We're going to close out and we're going to be looking for everyone's input of what things went well, what things can improve, and that's a collective effort. So we're going to be looking for everyone, and we're going to have a little fun doing so, just to make sure that we stay engaged. So if there is a topic or a question that I need to pull the thread a little more, hey, make sure we put it down. We're going to start off with our NMSC staff, Mr. Ben Longwood. He's going to be talking to us about SSRAs. So obviously the NMSC team is helping us learn about the NMCSOs, NMSC, Link 16, and we're not finishing up yet because SSRAs are equally important because you can't be getting those certifications document if you have not understood what that is. And oftentimes, some of us have the history of we're contacted at the last minute when it's hair's on fire. That's not a time for us to ask a question, what is an SSRA? So, with further ado, Mr. Ben Longwood, can we get a mic check, please? I'll say again, Mr. Ben Longwood, can we please get a microphone check, please? And we have our support staff trying to reach out to him. So, Randall, give me the thumbs up when. All right, well, I guess we had a deja vu. So we thought we had worked out all the communication bugs, but here we are, starting off slightly off. But Mr. Rich Segura, get ready, because if we don't take too long, we're going to go ahead and execute what we learned as the bump plan. Okay? Rich? Randall, can you go ahead and change the presentation? We're going to have Mr. Rich Segura go ahead and brief the training. And we will contact with Ben we can adjust a little later. But okay. Here we go. Rich. I told you we were going to do it.
You did it. You did it. Good morning. Everybody having a good time? Excellent. Great. My name is Rich Segura. I am not the NIWIC Alliance E3 Spectrum and EMZO Training Development Project Lead. Long title. Don't do much. No. 20 years Navy, retired OS. Been doing this training for a good 35 years, and a lot of you guys will probably see some of this stuff because I've been doing this twice a year since 2017. But we got a lot of good updates. Next, please. All right, so let's talk about, and this is what Mark kind of alluded to. Our first day is the NTSP, Navy Training Systems Plan. As he mentioned, most systems, NTSPs are designed around systems. So, you know, if you look at a Slick 32 or a Slate 10 Bravo, it's a system. NTSPs are based on that. Our system are NTAs. We are a concept and capabilities type NTSP. So, where are we now? As Mark mentioned, the last one was completed in 2012. We've been slowly working on this over the last couple of years, but due to priorities and things shifting, this got put on the back burner. So with EMZO and Spectrum, those disciplines change literally hourly sometimes. So we went all the way back to the drawing board, and it's going to be almost like a new NTSP. We are currently in the FEA TRIPM phase, and this is due to new requirements. And this was decided by OpNav N2N6, Mr. Mark Johnson. And what's our way ahead? We're gathering details and additional requirements, and we're going to expect to be completed with the FEA in the next couple of months, and then we go into the preliminary NTSP. So what are we doing with as part of this FEA real quick is we are doing a base comparison on the old NTSP. We're also doing a manpower and training requirement analysis. We're doing a training gap analysis, and if you go to the next slide, and what we've just completed in December, and I like to walk around, so tell me if you can't hear me. In December, we had a job task analysis over in I would see Virginia Beach. It was an EMS, so we not only focused on spectrum management and various jobs and skill sets with EMZO and radar and comm planning, so we hit the whole gamut. Like I said, it was conducted in 10 December 24. We had over 40 participants, and they were mostly all uniform service members. Now, this is, again, all Navy focused. Here's just some of the what we call workstations, skill groups, jobs. We had radar planners, comm planners, as you can see, EMZO coordinator. A lot of these end up coming up to be new. Shipboard EWO, staff EWO, the METOC, and a lot of these positions also came from the EMZO PQS. Now, we know, or we should know, that when we develop training, it has to be backed by a requirement. And so when those analyses are done, we do JTAs, which is job task analysis, and we also do JDTAs, job duty task analysis, and then we identify the gaps in training, and then the TICOM, such as NAV-I4, which is our requirements folks when it comes to IW, they'll spell out the requirements. Once that JTA or JDTA is complete, it's sent out to the fleet to be vetted. Once those come back, now we literally have the whole outline of a course if that's what we're developing. And we know requirements change so much. So, next slide, please. All right, so what's our next steps? My team we made the update to the JTA, and I will tell you, without completing the full analysis, there was some stuff that was identified during that work group conference is we need spectrum management type folks at the task unit level. Okay, so all of our spectrum managers, Navy-wise, are at the strike group or the ESG. You've got regional and installation spectrum managers. You do not have spectrum managers down there at the task unit level, ship level wise. You know, so you're talking about there's actually no more cruisers. I think they're on their last cruiser, DDGs and stuff like that. So they still have a big role in what they do, especially when it comes to independent steaming. You know, when they're going out and doing some training, you know, they still have spectrum to manage. They don't have that skill set. Now, in the Navy, it isn't like we can say, all right, we've identified we need a spectrum manager or somebody with some kind of training that could go through and that could manage, you know, the spectrum with regards to frequency management and stuff like that, what a frequency spectrum manager would normally do. So we try to put that training in place. And so that was one of the requirements that have come up, is we really need to do that. But it isn't like we can just create a billet on a ship. There's a lot of stuff that goes into the manpower. It ain't like you say, all right, we're going to create a new billet. Well, guess what? You just can't do that because you got to look at racks. So you got to look at, you know, the female to male ratio. So if you're going to bring a new billet on board the ship, you can expect to lose one. You're going to lose that rack space. So we thought about maybe making, if they go through the full spectrum manager course, it'd be a secondary NEC while they're at that task unit level. You know, at that task unit level. We're still working those details. But also what we identified is both the courses that I'll talk about here shortly, the MZO coordinator course, which back in 17 when we did the JDTA and it was approved, it was mainly focused on spectrum management. Do we need to update that course to be more MZO focused? Absolutely we do. But if we do that, then we run into issues as classification. That's another thing that came up during the JTA, is these are all unclassed courses. A lot of it is buttonology. You're learning, I mean, when you talk about RTSO, these guys they go through all the gamut of RTSO. We've created our own training scripts, different scenarios, and that's both for spectrum management, for the spectrum manager or the MZO coordinator afloat. Now, and there was a lot of agreement, this needs to go higher into, you know, at least the secret level, especially when you're getting into MZO and you're talking to the CTT and the EW stuff. So that's on the plate. Well, what's that going to do? That's going to truly increase the cost of all that work. And instead of holding questions to the end, what I like to do is, are there any questions on what I just mentioned now?
So, Rich, would you jump back a couple of slides to your table, please?
Sure. Could you back up 2 slides? Up, one more, up, one more. Now, go down to the table where it had the, right there. Is that the one you're talking about, Mark?
Yes. This is on?
Yep, there you go.
Okay, everybody. Just a note. Okay, here's what I'm thinking in my own small mind. First, I want to ask, how many people in the room right now are under one of these areas that's listed in the table? It's okay. Just trying to get an accurate read before I make my next statement.
And that's the problem.
Kind of what I expected.
Yes.
We don't have anybody that's under these areas, so that's good to know. And what I'm saying is, what I'm going to be doing as we move forward to the East Coast Summit, I'm going to be looking to find people that are in all these areas to bring them to the summit for our discussions. Okay, so that's my point. That's all I have.
And that's a great point. Thank you, Mark. Could you go ahead and move up a couple more slides? All right, let's stop right here. The MZO coordinator course. Okay, as you can read, it provides a comprehensive skill-based training in areas of EMS, safety, RADHAZ, OPTAS comms, radar plans, EMI, EMP. And if you notice, at least in the Navy, and it's a new concept, the EMSO cell. Okay, so they have the EMSO cell. Are there many folks manning up an EMSO cell and truly doing EMSO out there? No. And that's one of the issues. But, as you can see, you have an EMSO officer, an EMSO coordinator, and these are the primary folks in the cell and secondary members of the cell. And we cover all that in the training. But again, this course, when it was developed and when the requirements came out, was really more heavily spectrum management focused and not solely EMSO. We are having here, well, you know, it's 11 days, class is size is 16. It's delivered in 2 fleet concentration areas here in San Diego and in Virginia Beach as well. Course delivered in 22. We have a TRR, Training Requirements Review. For you old school Navy folks that would understand a HIPR, the HIPR actually replaced the TRR, Training Requirements Review. That's going to be in April. We're going to do the Training Requirements Review, and then if it's required to do a job duty task analysis, we'll do that as well, which will help update those requirements. So we are expecting this course to have a drastic change, and then going into the classified level. We're hoping, at least. Total courses to date, they've done 9. Any questions on the EMSO coordinator course? None. Okay, excellent. Go, please. So where's this course held? This course is... Okay, that's a great question. All right, the question was, number 1, who funds this and where are these courses being taught? These courses are being taught at IWITSE Virginia Beach and IWITSE San Diego. The original funding came from OpNav N2, N6, but because of the update and it's going to be more EMSO-centric, that's probably going to be shared between Whiskey, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, Whiskey, and we still got spectrum management in there, and probably from Mark as well. Does that answer your question? Yep. And if you have extra money you want to throw, hey, feel free, we'll take it. Okay, next please. All right, as many, and people have talked about it, and there's some heartburn in this, and that's okay, because some people don't understand the background behind it. But in 2012, the Navy, and every year since, have been doing HIPRs with the Keesler course. Okay, we know it's a nitro course. At one time, all the services went through it. The Air Force has built this to and it's still it's an apprentice level course. The Navy, and I know for a fact the Marine Corps, needs their spectrum management at the mastery level. Well, after having a lot of meetings, job duty task analysis in 2018, we completed another job duty task analysis on the fleet spectrum manager. It used to be called the enlisted frequency manager. And so this course came to be. Well, it took a bunch of years to get it together, and that's, we all know, funding's always an issue. But we delivered this to the Navy in June of last year. They've already had 5 courses, and I've spoke with, and these conversations started with Jerome Foreman, then go to Figueroa and Donato, a bunch of guys. I think me and Rich had these conversations a couple years ago. And the latest with Warrant Officer Butler, how the Marine Corps truly wants to be able to hopefully capitalize on this course. But we also know now the Marine Corps, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, that this is not an MOS for you guys as a spectrum, but you guys are working that issue right now, correct? Right. Okay, so we had a pilot. We invited you guys out, but unfortunately, scheduling conflicts, no one can come out. But we would still like to bring in our brothers in the browns and in the greens, our Marines, into this. Now there's a lot of politics to go on with that, but it would save the government tons of money, and it will align the department and everybody doing the same thing. And we know there's going to be a gap between what the Marines do and how they do certain things compared to the Navy, and we're ready. We're ready for that too, because we can always then identify that gap, build and fill those gaps, and then just extend the course for the Marines, maybe a week or two if that's how long it would take, and we'd have a fully functional course for both the Navy and the Marine Corps. And wouldn't need a nitro agreement because we're all Department of the Navy. That's good stuff. So this course is going well. We are going to do CWIT, Center for Information Warfare Training, and I4. When a course is brand spanking new, they like to do a training requirements review 1 year, within a year or so after the course has been up, so we can make sure we're still meeting the marks, and if there are changes that need to be made, we can POM for that, and we can plan for that. We already know that there's a lot of changes that need to happen here. We need to go to the classified level, which also enables us to be able to have those conversations in a classified setting. Some people don't know, may not know what's the purpose of training. Training is meant to change a behavior. So, what are we trying to do? We're trying to make the world's best spectrum managers. We're trying to change that behavior. How do we do that? We go to that classified level. We can have those classified conversations. We can apply those tactics. We can open up those classified pubs. We could, as Jason was here yesterday and talking about when he goes and he specifically trains, he looks at folks and saying, okay, here's the exercise you're coming up to. Let's plan that comm planning and radar planning focused on that. That's realistic training. Right now we couldn't do that because our Spectrum 21, it is virtually almost a blank database. We're teaching folks how to use it, how to enter in your SSIPT, all that other good stuff, all that buttonology, but there's a lot that we can't get into just because of the classification. So to drive those points home and that training home, we really need to go to that level. Yes?
Do you have any idea when you guys are looking at moving up to that secret level?
That's a great question. So Rich asked, when do we plan on moving up to that classified level? Do we have an idea? Well, I would say probably minimum 27, 28. And the reason I say that, number one, funding. Number two, if it looks like we have to revamp, saying 70% of the course to bring it to that level, then that's a lot of rework. So, which is great, because bottom line is, and people who've known me long enough to know I don't play the politics. Bottom line is, I like to provide what the warfighter needs. I want to do it now. I have no patience. I'm an Italian. No. And so the thing is, so that's what we're looking at. Now, we also know there's multiple streams of funding that needs to come in to do this. We also, when you go into a secret level, you're going to look at now, you have to make sure those facilities are there. If the facilities aren't available, what's it going to take to build that? So you have to go through that whole acquisition. So, but we can do it. We can do it. But bottom line is, that's why meetings like this, and I'm glad Mark mentioned this, coming on the East Coast Summit, is we need the guys in the deck plates. Yesterday, Warrant sat there, and we were I just had a conversation with Mark and Dave and Arthur about that, the deck plates, and really identifying what's the issues with Spectrum. This is a great conference and everything, but I'm looking at the deck plate guys. What problems are we having? And all of a sudden, Warren says, you know what? When we're talking host nation, he brought up about the 1494 and how long it takes to go through, and the contract, the COTS, they're not providing all, and how it's hindering operations. And some of these guys turned around and looked at me. They knew exactly and that's the issues we really need to look at. Any questions about the Fleet Spectrum Manager course? Wow. Fantastic. All right. Oh, you had something, Arthur?
Is this on? So, Rich, I know some of the key aspects of how we look at spectrum training, and I know that we described that the Navy has pulled out of Keesler, but at the same time, what are we looking at to ensure that we're integrating our training from the context of, I know we had a small discussion of speed and RTSO, but those foundations from a joint standpoint, because Navy, Marine Corps are always joint everywhere we go. So that foundation, how do we interoperate, build op TASCOMs that support the ground forces and vice versa? We have to start thinking about how we start to make that strategic leap to integrate and have those discussions. What do you think that we should be doing there?
That, you know what, and that's an excellent question, Arthur, and I appreciate it. When we started developing this course, because I've been part of these various CFTs on the spectrum superiority strategy and stuff like that, and looking down, and some of these studies started back in, I guess it was 2018, and that's kind of the focus we kept things. We started building our training to the joint level for the Joint Spectrum Manager, and looking at, we didn't bring in speed for the simple reason is because at the time when doing all this, there were no Marines that had an interest in partaking. So is that a change that we can make? Absolutely it can be. But we also know that ACES JACs, you need to build your JCOIs, and which the 2-week joint course at Keesler, which we all know, and I don't have to say anything about that course. We built all that into the current spectrum. So now the Navy is not getting the old NECs 2301 and 2302. Now it's 801 Alpha and 800 Alpha. 800 Alpha, I believe, is going away. You're getting one NEC because you're now being also taught the joint aspect of spectrum management. And you're talking about dealing with Hans Widow, host nation, all those various different things that you're going to do at the joint level is already built into our course. So now we, again, we're keeping the warfighter back on the ship by saving them TAD time and funds. And again, all that's being brought in. So now when you go through this course, if you're going to a joint billet, you don't have to go through the training again and take this other course because you've already got that training. So once you're a spectrum manager, you can fill any billet. Does that answer your question, Arthur?
Yes.
And we've got, and we still have a long way to go. But I think with the input from our deck plates and from our folks, David. Oh, there's an online question.
Hey, Rich over here, Jose. So I'm going to read it off for Mr. Jim Ortega. What specific competencies or depth of knowledge might be compromised in the Navy's new 35-day spectrum management course compared to the more extensive curriculum offered by air firms at Keesler Air Force Base?
Excellent question. When we sat down, one of the biggest things is there was a lot of, forgive me, I'm not the smartest tool in the shed. I hate math. But in the Keesler course, there was a whole lot of math in that. A lot of math. Okay, guess what? None of that is included because we have tools to do all that for you. So we try to think smarter, not harder. We have all these great tools out there to do all this skywave analysis and all these various different things. Guess what? I'll get with you. And so we have these tools to do that. When we sat down with CSG, I guess it was 10, Master Chief Rufa, and a whole lot of old school spectrum managers back in 18 to identify truly what was needed. We did away with a lot of the spec-an stuff. And ask them, I hope that answers your question. I can get some more detailed answers in a different setting, if somebody send me an email, we can have another conversation. It didn't? It didn't answer the question? Okay, I'm going to go, please.
So I was Army, beat Navy. So the
Not this year.
sorry. Look, we have dreams, okay? So I caution because I deployed to Afghanistan as a Spectrum manager. There were a lot of times I did not have access to those tools. And I'm speaking on behalf of my Marine Corps cousins. They would do the same similar stuff. They could be in situations. So I caution about not teaching that math because there were many times that I had to use that and do it on the fly because I didn't have anything. I didn't have a computer. I didn't have anything. But I had books that I could lug around.
No, and I completely understand that. But as I said, I don't write the requirements. I4, they come out with the requirements after we've done all the analysis and we brought all, and it isn't like we're bringing new Spectrum managers that haven't had any operational experience to these JDTAs. We're bringing some senior folks in. So when the Navy says, "Hey, this is what we need," and once those requirements are identified, that's what we build the training to. Just like I've had people saying, we really need to teach them still how to use a spec an, and which I can completely understand. But then again, we only build to the requirements. But I appreciate that comment, and I can imagine there could be some use at times like that.
Rich, real quick, you just mentioned the spec and training. I know right now it's back here in the cheap seats.
Oh, there you go.
I know right now it's more Navy-centric, but as you look at incorporating the Marine Corps requirements, the spec and training is definitely one thing that needs to be brought back into that course when it gets to that point, because back in Afghanistan, still a Staff Sergeant Reese at the time, we were doing spec and requirements, going out to the field and helping out the Marines.
And see, and that's a good point. And that's why when we do this gap, and if the Marine Corps says, let's sit down, let's do what you call an equivalent to a job duty task analysis, this is what, and we identify what the Marine Corps needs. We look at what we're meeting already, identify those gaps, and if saying the spec and say, running in a Ritsu or one of those handheld wands and all that else, hey, then that requirement has been identified, and that's what we build the training to.
Sir Mark Taylor, just speaking from a former 7th Fleet Spectrum manager, two things with that. Your think tanks where you got all the senior master chiefs and everything, a lot of those guys are stuck in an old way of thought, and there's no innovation to that. So you're losing out on a lot of that. And also with the spec-an piece, the fleet Spectrum managers, they sit in Yokosuka. We have a bunch of ships in Sasebo. If no one has spec-an training, we're relying on NMCSOs to go out there. And that should be the fleet's responsibility.
I got you. Go ahead, Rich.
I'll throw a bone. So we have been in communications with Rich. Mike Butler's been working with him extensive as we've been looking at our MOS modernization. We're updating our training and readiness standards. So as we update those standards and we figure out which way we're going, we owe it to you. We're going to send someone through the school as a pilot to see if it meets the mark for us on what we need. Currently, we are still sticking with Keesler, but there's more discussions to be had with you guys.
And that's awesome. That is awesome. So we know that there is work that needs to be done. But again, it's got to come up from the deck plates. Those guys are doing that job day in and day out. And we do. And I'm not just saying just the Master Chiefs. You've got some squared away first classes. I know, JSC or PEO Spectrum. And no, I'm going to say no, JSC, because that's who they were then. No. But PEO Spectrum, these guys have been heavily involved with a lot of our stuff because, they do this training stuff and they do all that stuff and day in and day out. So believe me, it's just not the Master Chiefs. And as Jason said yesterday, a lot of times the Master Chiefs will just sit there up in the mess doing all that senior stuff and passing the buck on to somebody else. And that definitely, looking at billeting, I don't think you should have anything more than a senior chief. But then again, if we go to the task unit level, you're gonna get a lot better spectrum managers out there because they're starting at the lower levels at that task unit level. Yes, another question, and then I'll move on.
I don't really have a question, but I just graduated with the spectrum management course in Virginia in December.
Oh, great,
Yeah,
fantastic,
I
yay.
just want to say my plug. I think we would have benefited with the SpecAn aspect of it, but we only had 5 students in our class. I think it would have been a bigger class, would have been more beneficial to have more experiences. And most of my classmates, which were senior chief and above, I was only first class there. It was more like job sheets and just reading through a book and just going through directions. It wasn't really more background. It's just do and repeat. And I think OJT is better than just CBT going through line item by line item.
And I'm glad you bring that point up. Those are the specific, that's why this class needs to go to a classified level, so we're able to do that. We're able to go real world operations and create those various different scenarios. And depending on where you are stationed, if you're at 7th Fleet, we're gonna have scenarios based on 7th Fleet.
Yeah, and each of us were going through different places, so then they want to specify what their job title is going to be and their job title, what they're actually going to do, then collaborating everyone's jobs together. So I'm going to NCMSO Southwest, and then I had a student going to PAC Fleet, one was in on ship, and like not knowing everything that they're gonna do, that I'm not gonna touch our TSO, and we have to learn everything collaborated. They just wanted to be like more specific, maybe an extra class that's just in depth in what their job is supposed to do.
And that's a good point. And we also have online, we have 69 courses that focus on E3, Spectrum, and EMI, all on JKO. And if you want to see those, you can send me an email. I'll send you that course catalog. I know my time's about up, but I just want to go ahead real quick, finish these slides out, and huh? All right. Well, and here's what we do. That's what we do, and I appreciate you, brother.
So that's why I had Rich at the bottom of the day so he can go ahead and keep us going. However, early in the day, we got some limitations. Nonetheless, our Air Force brother, Tom, if you can please make your way over. So I want to do a quick comm check. Ben Longwood, are you able to speak now? I've received notifications you moved to a better location.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Okay, perfect. So you are going to be immediately after our Air Force colleagues, you're going to be the next briefer. Is that okay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Hey, thank you so much. Hey, we're going to hand it over to Tom Sneed, Air Force Department, talk about Saturn.
Hey, good morning, everyone. How you doing? So, Tom Sneed, I am the Chief of Spectrum Ops in Air Force Spectrum. So, I wanted to do a quick spatial awareness quiz, if you will. So, outside that door to the left, there's been a booth out there. Hey, anybody notice what that booth was named? Jupiter, right. I'm talking about Saturn, Jupiter. You walk down to the left, there's 2 more booths. The second one, anybody see the name of that one? Neptune, right? So the planets are all lining up for this briefing. So on behalf of Colonel Miller Art, I wanted to thank you for the invite. Jim Ortega, if you're online, thank you. I know James is back there. We really want to thank you for the invite and really want to thank you more for your partnership fighting this EMS fight, right? As we are getting confined into a smaller and smaller space, the only way we are going to survive is together. So thank you for that. NTIA, I'm glad to see you guys are here, as well as our friends at FAA. Your partnerships And what you do for us is absolutely critical as we have transitioned toward this thing we call great power competition. So thank you for that. And even FAA, we know you are not our enemy. We like to throw stones at you all the time, but it's very, very important what you guys do for us. And it's very, very important what they do for the NAS, right? That's how most of us got out here, is the National Airspace System. And last night is a really poignant example of how they have to dot every I and cross every T with everything they do. So thank you for that. So Saturn, typical DoD agenda. These are the things I'll talk about. So Saturn, second generation anti-jam tactical UHF radio for NATO. So it's the next generation electronic protect measure standard. So I say next generation, we'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. 225 to 400 megahertz, that is the military advisory group band. So like the FAA, it kind of has control of 960 to 1215 megahertz. 225 to 400 is kind of under control of the Department of Defense. Air Force is the MAG chair with that. NATO standard, STANAG 4372, there's a classified version of that and an unclassified version. So talk about that again in a moment. And this is a replacement for HAVQuick. HAVQuick is a response to, HAVQuick is just a code word that means American Frequency Hopping System. It is a response to Vietnam, was developed in the 70s for being able to easily jam AM air-to-air, air-to-ground communications. So frequency hopping to solve that. Saturn, which was developed in the 80s, is more of a capability to defeat follow-on jammers. So Saturn, same look and feel as HAVQuick. So if you're familiar with that, it'll look the same, and really it's the same schema to operate. There is a net number that keeps everybody on the same network. There's a time of day reference, which is typically GPS, and then a word of day, which is a transect key produced by NSA, the transmission security, which provides the hop frequency pattern, the hop rate, and then the dwell time. So big challenge. So this was developed 35 years ago, right? So in 2016, there was a memo put out by DoD that says, hey, we need to get away from HAVQuick, right? So 2018, another memo said, 1 October 2024, no more, we're sunsetting HAVQuick, everybody needs to be up on Saturn. Well, we're 4 months beyond that, and we're still using HAVQuick. So unfortunately, just the DoD grind, I mean, we really didn't start even nugging into Saturn until late 2023. That's when HAF came to me and said, hey, we need 1,600 frequencies in the UHF band for this Saturn radio that's coming up. So 1,600 proposals that I'm going to send over there to Mr. Brown, and we're going to clog up the agenda process for about 5 days. But we've come with a plan, talked a lot with John McFall and Greg on how to do this more efficiently and to make it easier to manage. So, but yes, we're way behind the power curve for this. NSA is still producing that HAVQuick word of the day. They have not given us a drop dead date as to when they're going to stop doing that. We've asked 1 million times, but it is coming. So there'll be an Air Force memo as well as a DoD memo coming out very, very soon to really push people to start using Saturn more. So here's where we're at currently. So HAVQuick is a T5. There's a HAVQuick 1 is a T5. So essentially, it's 25 kilohertz channels that it hops around on, and that provides 5 networks. HAVQuick 2, 16, same thing, 16 frequencies, 16 networks. And these are USMP approved across the country, same as in NATO. Not the same frequencies, but the same numbers. Now there is these are training hop sets. There is an operational with many, many more frequencies, typically not published, typically not approved through a regulator, and really only authorized through 4-star approval. So in NATO, it would be NATO commander. Here in the United States, it would be the NORTHCOM. So for Saturn now, we have two T40 channels. So that's 40 frequency hop set that provides 5 networks. So those have been approved for about 4 years. They're good across the United States in possessions. They're joint use assignments. And same as in NATO, there's a T40 there. And then there's this big T1120, which is kind of where we're going here. We call the T40s the A nets on Saturn, and then this T1120 is what they call the B nets. That's what we're trying to get to. So when they came to me asking for 1,600 frequencies, it's actually, we're going to do 1,120, and we're going to hop on 480 of those twice to get to the 1,600 frequency algorithm in the radio. So I wanted to do a quick, because I've heard this term used incorrectly here a couple of times, allocation. And we hear this a lot on the staff is they talk about DOD allocations, right? So there are no DOD allocations. There are federal government allocations that we share with 19 other federal agencies. But I hear that a lot. So the terminology between allocation and assignment is often very much misused, creates a lot of confusion. But allocation, that's a regulatory term, sets aside a frequency or a band for a specific purpose, fixed, mobile, you name it. Because we want to keep those kind of things separated, because you don't want radars operating in TV broadcasts, because if they're spinning at 5 RPM every 12 seconds, you're going to lose the Super Bowl. So we don't want to do that. So everybody's seen the chart. This is a 2015 version. I think Mr. Rosner, I heard you say the other day that you guys are trying to kind of resurrect this chart and get it going again.
There's a new version in the works I was just looking at.
Yeah, so that, which is good, because a lot of people ask about this. It's a old, this is a 10-year-old chart, but everybody kind of, if you've had any experience with it, it's kind of broken up in each of the bands and what they represent, as well as whether it is a federal allocation or a non-federal allocation or shared. So a quick myth, and we're doing this with a GAO study now, that the DOD is allocated large amounts of the EMS. So that's just untrue. We're not allocated any, for one. Like I said earlier, federal government is allocated. And if you look at that chart as a whole, really only 1.1% of that, all that spectrum is allocated to the federal government, which we share with 19 other agencies. So 3 times that is already allocated to the private sector, and the rest of it is all shared. And I know these numbers are kind of skewed, because when you go from 50 to 300 gigahertz, which is a huge part of the spectrum, that's all shared already. But even when you look at it below 50, yes, we go up to 6.7, but it's still a 3-to-1 ratio that the commercial side already has more access to than we do, and the rest of it is all shared. So then another big myth is that the DOD doesn't know how to effectively use the spectrum. Case in point is the MAG band, and but efficient, we talked about it yesterday at the board. Efficiency is, that's kind of in our DNA. It's part of all of our publications. It's something we strive to do. It's something we have to do to keep operations going. But if you look at the 225 to 400 band, the MAG band, that's really, there's 43,000 GMF records in that. So there's only 650,000 total in the GMF. 43,000 of them are in this 175 megahertz. So if you think about that, 6.6% of all the frequency assignments are in that 1/10% of that actual chart. So we know how to share, we know how to reuse, we know how to repurpose. So we do it well, and this is an example of that. So another thing, the channel plan. If anybody has any experience with the 225 to 400 channel plan, it is a relic. It's way overdue for updating. I don't see Dwayne Jones in here anymore. Oh, there you are. So I was going to beat up Bo about this, because this has been lingering for a long time. This is way overdue for getting up done. Now the Air Force is back as the steer for the allotment plan management ad hoc. So this is a huge priority for us to get done. because there's a lot of things in this that we need to try to avoid with Saturn. We need to avoid all the Annex A stuff, that's all air traffic control stuff. Annex C, which is all the command and control stuff, and Annex D, which is SATCOM. You know, we don't want to hop across a lot of those things, so we try to avoid them. So, but we need this plan updated to make sure we're doing it. So kind of the path forward on this is, those are the three big certs that are already approved to use for Saturn. ARC 210 is being really the big one for us. We have, if you look at in the database now, if you look at the first 32 Air Force serial numbers for 2025, that's where you're going to find Saturn's 1,120 channels for the BNets. So we think we have 5 of those approved now. The next 10 are out for coordination. We hope to have these done by the end of February. So the way we're doing this, didn't want to do 1,120 individual SAS so fast to send to Mr. Brown over there. So what we're doing is we break up the spectrum into what they call bins, these 4 megahertz bins. And with each of those 4 megahertz bins, we do a band assignment and 2 excluded bands. And the remaining from those non-excluded, that gives us 5 groups of 7 contiguous frequencies. So this has taken a long time to make right, to avoid Annex A, avoid Annex C, avoid Annex D. Been working this with MITRE for about 8 months but we have it done now. We do have a big concern with MUOS. So MUOS operates 300 to 320 megahertz up and 360 to 380 down, and we are going to step all over MUOS with this 1120 frequency hop set. There's been lots of tests, small scale, and a number of exercises, but all of them have been typically used with Saturn hop sets that don't touch MUOS frequencies. So like I said, with this is going to be one of those things where we want to get it in the hands of the warfighters as quickly as possible, get it in some red flags, these big exercises where we can make sure it operates in the same environment as intended. So 5 groups of 7. The reason for 7 is because of this thing called CEDAR, so Saturn Enhanced Data Rate. So instead of hopping on single channels, now it's hopping on groups of 7. So instead of a 25 kilohertz emission, it jumps to 175. And that is so we can push secure voice and secure data at the same time. Think mini Link 16. So that's kind of what this is going to be able to do. Now, CEDAR is not a full-blown, yes, we're definitely doing this. NATO's already doing it. NATO actually wants to try to expand it to 9 channels, which would be a nightmare to have to redo this, but I don't anticipate that's going to be something we have to worry about up front. Like I said, CEDAR's not going to be a requirement from the get-go, but we wanted to bake it in just so we're ready should we go in that, and that's still being determined. Air Force is the executive agent for Saturn, as we were for HAVQuick, so a lot of this is, you know, we're building the airplane as we fly it here. So, any questions?
Don't have a question or
Okay.
a comment. And first thing, I want to thank the Air Force for attending. Part of these processes is unifying our approaches, and the only way we unify approaches is if we start inviting other services and other organizations to our meetings so we could start talking and sometimes having those hard discussions like the slides on the 1%. I may steal them from you because we've been talking about that holistically for quite some time, but it tells a pretty good story. That foundation of there's no greenfield spectrum anymore, and we had to start looking how we share, just because if there's no federal allocation left, because it's clear there's none left. We have to change the way we do things, and the only method is to look how we share more effectively, and I still believe that we're going to have to consider how we redesign our architecture holistically, not only from an industry standpoint, but from a federal standpoint. And I realize that when we start to walk the process through is that we always look at inefficiency as you described,
Yeah,
but there's inefficiencies on both sides that need to be corrected in order for us to move into the future and innovate.
absolutely. And you talk about it all the time that, you know, today's policies do not support tomorrow or today's warfighter. I mean, that is very, very true. We have to figure out how to keep those things in sync, which is a huge, huge challenge. And it's not a DoD problem, right? This is a whole of nation problem. Anything else?
Sir,
Yes, sir.
Given right that it's a lot of USMP and NATO, has the Air Force given any thought to contacting U.S. Forces Korea, U.S. Forces Japan to try to get those two countries established? The last meeting that I had with Mr. Boyd at USFK, he said that the Air Force had brought it up, right? And I was bringing it up because just how we have the Half Quick 2 and we have the SINGUARDs, and you know now we have Saturn capable radio. I had brought up that question, right? So
Yes, we are. I was just chatting with the Japanese attaché yesterday about Saturn. So they're well behind as well. They're thinking 2028 before they get jets equipped just to be able to do this. So you know that is going to create significant challenges if we sunset Half Quick. And the two streams don't cross. So if you're on Saturn and somebody else is on Half Quick, you know those are separate. Those are separate things. They don't work. They don't coexist. But yes, that's a big problem, and I know Korea is as well. Getting 1,120 channels in Japan, that's not going to happen. There's no way. Not in this lifetime. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Just wanted to confirm, I saw your SPSs for the 3 different pieces of equipment
Yeah.
that they're replacing. Just wanted to confirm, you guys are doing search for this, or?
They're done.
Okay.
They're all done, yes. So I think you guys just slapped approval dates for 1 year because we're changing some station class stuff on the first 5. So only 27 to go. Anything else? Awesome, thanks all.
All right, so want to thank Tom and the Air Force team for being here and also helping some of us admin folks stay happy and stress-free. So thank you very much. Great information. As an after action, we got to make it a point to keep having them on board. So we're going to roll right into Mr. Ben Longwood. Ben Longwood, can you please get a mic check, please?
Okay, I'm here.
Okay, so the slides are present. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So good afternoon, good morning, depending upon where you're joining us from. Spectrum Supportability Risk Assessment and Spectrum Supportability Integrated Product Team Awareness and Operational Excellence. So my name is again Ben Longwood. I'm contractor support from the NMSC, and my primary focus is supporting anything that is SSRA related. Next slide. So here's our agenda. We'll quickly touch on these items. Next slide. So requirement, SSRA requirement can be defined for you by reviewing the DoD instruction 4650.01 as well as DoD 5000.02. These two documents will give you justification for why it is necessary to generate SSRAs. SSRAs should be generated prior to completion of a certification. This is a rather busy slide. There's some other items here where you can access some sources that will give you further understanding of SSRAs. For example, the last bullet is the Joint Service Guide for SSRA. That actually tells you not necessarily why it's required, but how to generate an SSRA. Next slide. So the purpose of an SSRA is to develop acquisition strategies and to assist with integration of all spectrum-dependent processes and objectives. In a nutshell, an SSRA is required to address technical operational components of a system as it relates to spectrum supportability for a spectrum dependent system. So before acquisition, it's necessary to generate an SSRA. Next slide. And our spectrum supportability integrated product team's objective is to achieve spectrum supportability for all spectrum dependent systems, improve non-electromagnetic spectrum ability through spectrum dependent system awareness. Next slide. Okay, so on this slide, this shows you the SSRA process. In developing or processing an SSRA, it's a 10-step process. The first divided into 2 phases. Phase 1 is 5 steps. Phase 2 is an additional 5 steps. So we were to start with phase 1 is a review process where the program manager office submits the initial SSRA. His SysCom reviews it, and eventually it gets to step 3 where NMSC receives it, and then we will review it. And if adjudication is necessary, we would forward to step 2, and then a final review by the integrated product team's chair for recommendations, and then forward on to phase 2 for the necessary signatures. Next slide. This shows you a graphical representation of how you would actually move through those, the 10 steps. Emphasize here, you see text in red underneath each box. That indicates that each process requires 5 days for that particular step to be accomplished, with the exception of step 1, of course, because that's the initial generation of the SSRA. There's no limitation on time there. We would look at step 3, SSIPT working group, that is NMSC. That is where an engineer at NMSC will review the SSRA and make suggestions if changes are necessary. And then we move on to step 4, where it may be an iterative process for some adjudication to address any questions as that SSRA is developed. In the perfect world, it would take 75 days to actually complete an SSRA from step 1 to step 10. However, this process is actually in triple that time, in some cases even more time. So as you're developing your SSRA, if you're in any of these particular steps, we really ask you to do your best to adhere to your 5-day limitation before completing the SSRA. Next slide. Our current challenge is NavI4 and support of the SharePoint's portals has been, they're having issues there to the point that the portal where you would submit an SSRA is no longer available. So NMSC is working on a workaround using Intel docs, and we're beta testing that now. Very soon we should be able to distribute to you instructions on how you would actually develop or submit your SSRA and have it move through the 10 process steps using Intel docs. Next slide. Can you back up a slide? You may have skipped one. Yes. No? Okay. Next slide. This just shows you that currently we have 10 active SSRAs that are in one of the proceeding through the 10-step process. Actually, some of you may have received email from NMSA. Once we're aware of a particular system that requires an SSRA, we will send you notification requesting that you begin the 10-step process for and submit your SSRA. So currently there are approximately 22 systems out there that are in one phase of development for an SSRA. Next step, next big slide. I want to emphasize to you for guidance purposes that an SSRA is not a substitute for a cert. The SSRA process and the ESC process exist independent of each other. These are 2 necessary processes. NMSC will not do any analysis of your SSRA Our function is to confirm your risk, suggest mitigation to you, and to assist you with developing any mitigation that's necessary. An SSRA is not a substitute for host nation spectrum approval, nor is an SSRA a substitute for host nation frequency assignments. So I realize I moved through that fairly quickly. Next slide, if you have any questions, I'm open for questions.
Hi, Ben. This is Pam Crispell, NavAir eCube Spectrum. I just wanted to clarify that step 3, NMSC definitely provides review, but also Mark Johnson's staff provides a review, and then other SysComs, as well as, I think, Fleet Forces, NavI4. The SSIPT has several members who will provide a review. Typically, NMSC does give a very in-depth review, but other SysComs are able. For instance, if NavAir is putting something on a ship, Brad Connor is going to want to say something and review it. So just wanted to clarify that.
Yes, if you can go back to, I think it's slide 6. Yeah, okay. So step 3 is NMSC performing the review. And once we get to step 5, where the integrated product team chair makes his recommendation, we send it off for signature. So during the signature phases, that's where what Pam was mentioning, those final reviews will occur requesting his signature. Any other questions?
Hey, Ben, Mark Johnson, thanks for the briefing. So for everyone's benefit, I want to make a couple of comments.
Thank you.
So at the OpNav level, I'm interested in seeing an honest-to-goodness assessment of the puzzle pieces that go into an SSRA. How are things sizing up relative to your spectrum cert work, stage 1, 2, 3 type approvals in host nation? And how are things stacking up relative to your EMI, your electromagnetic interference assessments, not only at the box level and the platform level, but the straight group level? I'm going to see something about the context of the expectation of how your systems and platforms are going to be used. Let me give you an example. Suppose you got a great idea, a program has a great idea for a new system that's going to require 4 simultaneous antennas aboard a ship, and you're going to expect a certain amount of bandwidth to operate simultaneously. I'd like to see the assessment of how that's going to work in the context of the overall ship's strike group operations. How likely is it you're going to be able to do that? So,
well, currently there's the Joint Service SSRA guide. In that guide, it has an explanation and a breakdown of the tools that are used to accomplish just what you're asking. We're working on updating that guide to make it specifically, make it Navy specific. The guide that exists currently is for all of DoD. So we're developing a guide that would address what you're asking for.
Thanks, Ben. Just want to make sure that I'm going to level set here. Go ahead, David.
Yeah.
Hey, Ben, thank you for the brief. This is David. I think one of the reasons you should know why Mark kind of asked for that, not only is it important, but ultimately when the SSRA gets up to OpNav level, whatever category it is, which would be determined if it's a Cat 1 alpha and below, it would be signed at OpNav, and above that will have to go to DON-CIO. Now, one of the biggest complaints with the SSRAs is it actually just takes too long to get them signed. And I will tell you, we take these packages and we have to go in front of an SES and explain. And most of the SESs we have in the building are engineers, and they really want to know this stuff. So it actually helps us help you when you provide that data as well. Over.
So not to steal the whole script here, but I am perfectly willing to put forward an SSRA if you have risk. We just want to understand what the risk is, right? We want an honest assessment of where you are with risk. And I will tell you that we have put forward at least to my recollection, we had put forward one SSRA that had lots of red risk because it was kind of a cutting edge, going to require a lot of bandwidth, really critical. We still put that forward up, not only through my boss at the SES level, but to Art's boss. And at the time, it was Mr. Terry Halverson. That shows you how long ago it was. That had red risk. And Mr. Halverson wanted to understand what that risk was. And he said, okay, but I want you to come back and tell me how we're doing and burning down the risk. We want to have an honest risk assessment, is my point. It's not bad to have red if you understand why you're red and what you're going to do in a credible sense to burn down the risk. That's it.
So I just want to look at the entire group here and say SSRA is a great capability. If we look at the aspects of artificial intelligence and where we're going, if we start to integrate it into a software that allows us to look at those risks and associate it to countries and capabilities and make decision planning on the fly, also assist electronic warfare folks to understand where we're operating at, and taking that red-green team approach to it. There's a lot of information that could be utilized if it's put into the right format and used from a battlefield-type friendly capability. So there is a lot there, and we can certainly improve it as well, just because if we're really looking at how do we make our force smarter and more digitized, that's one method.
Hey, I'll add one last comment, I promise. Last comment. One of the more recent SSRAs we processed through OpNav benefited from David and I having interaction with our counterpart requirements officers at OpNav. It was an aircraft system, I'm not going to say the specific one, but we identified who at our level, the AO level, maybe the captain level, was working on the program, on the requirement side. And we met with them face to face saying, look, we're looking at your SSRA. I'm not the requirements officer for your aircraft or your systems on there, but we're looking at it, and it's been through the rigors of the Tech Authority, both NAVAIR, I believe, and NAVC, if I'm not mistaken. And that's really I will add this comment parenthetically. At OpNav, our SESs want to know, probably the first question is, what does the Tech Authority say? And luckily, there's Tech Authority signature elements for the routing sheet, okay? But in this particular case, David and I met face-to-face with our counterpart requirements people for that particular program, walked them through what the gist of the SSRA was, because I don't think they were, David, prior to us going in, I don't think they were aware that an SSRA was getting routed up. So what I'm saying to you is, if you will assist my office, David and me, if you know your SSRA is coming, if you can give us a heads up of who the requirements officer is, if you know by name, we can go and set up a face-to-face in the building, get with them, make sure they on the page. We actually pulled them into the review with our SES for the SSRA. Our SES deputy asked some very good questions about one of the particular boxes on the aircraft that was important to know, and that requirements officer on the aircraft side was able to participate in the discussion with real answers, which ended up getting the SSRA signed. Okay, so we're ready to work with you. It helps if you know who the names of the requirements officer level people are, especially when it comes time to get it routed and approved up at the OpNav level. Thanks.
So before I hand it back over to Jose, I just want to thank the support team, NMSC, Garen folks for putting this together. None of this gets put together without them working in the background. A lot of hiccups have been happening in the background. We see very little of them just because that team has been supporting us 100%, and we can't do this without them. So Gara, Christina, and the NMSC team back there, I thank you. We can't do it without you.
Jeff, thank you so much, Jeff. one big anchors away. Hey, team, so this morning, first of all, Ben, thank you so much for being able to kind of work through the communications. Appreciate your information, the conversation, discussion, let you know that that's a topic close and dear to a lot of us, not only our hearts, but our organization. But in effort to keep up with my new task, which is adjust and keep the show moving, we're gonna try to come back at 9:30, 09:30, so this break is gonna be a little brief, but easy, help us compensate for the little bit of adjustments. Before we leave, on the very back, our support staff that we just got some kudos, they actually have a no kidding survey for how the conduct of this took place. So please, on your way out on the break, grab a piece of paper, fill it out with time and give it to us so that it can help us kind of help the Ed and Jessica, the larger Don CIO staff that were working to make sure that things were well. So microphones, audiovisual, cleanliness, all that stuff, please should you add it to there. And I don't want to go ahead and miss the opportunity to say thank you for the commo of the Abraham Lincoln to be here with us. So, ma'am, thank you for being here. Looking forward to having you with the rest of the day with us. So 9:30 sharp. Thank you.